Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's June 15th, 2023. In today's video, I'm going to go over an update on a couple of different trees. 4 years ago, I was clearing with Bumblebee, the old Komatsu mini excavator, and I was clearing, sorry about that with the gimbal, clearing down in that area in between the trees. And often, when you're working in a forest area and you're trying to get rid of all the grapevines that are there, the native grapevines, which are massive and big problems, and the rose bushes, which are invasive species, you're trying to get the area cleared out some, but there'll be clusters of trees that are right next to each other that are valuable trees that you want to save. And there's multiple places on the property that as I've been clearing, I've been saving specific trees to transplant when it's optimal time. So one of the things I would say is, first off, when it's time to transplant trees, it's best to do it. It's the way to enhance your chances of success are when the trees are dormant. That's after the leaves fall off, if it's a deciduous tree, and the buds haven't emerged yet in the spring. So really transplanting them at those times and trying to get as much of the root mass and the soil that's around the roots at the same time. Well, 4 years ago, and down in that area behind me there, I used a mini excavator. There was a cluster of a couple of maples, a couple of ash trees, and the ash trees ended up having come out. But there was a relatively, probably about a 7-foot tree, and I'll try to put a link in the description to transplanting the small oak tree. And that was 4 years ago. Then 3 years ago I did an update on it as well. But there's multiple things. I'll be talking about mycorrhizal fungi to enhance your chances, only transplanting when they're dormant, but I have broken that rule as well, trying to get as much of the root ball as possible. Tap-rooted plants like the oak trees like this. This is the small oak tree that I transplanted 4 years ago. Now, I've had to prune this a few times since transplanting it. To give you a size reference, there's Suki over there, and this is the tree here. I don't know, about 18 feet tall, I'd say this one is. So this is either a northern red oak or quercetan oak. Could actually be a bur oak as well. I'm not positive at this point. So we transplanted that one 4 years ago, later on in the season. I didn't do it when it was dormant. I broke that rule. I did damage the taproot when I dug this one up with the mini excavator. It was split and the taproot was still attached, but it was turned on a 90-degree angle because the area is just all big stones and gravel over there. So you can refer to that video if you wanted to see more of the detail at that time. But I've had to prune it because the deer do browse on it, and you get some dieback at times, but the tree is doing very well 4 years later. There's a black walnut I transplanted over here. All the trees that you see around, and I'm going to show you a couple more oaks in a couple of minutes. But this is one of the walnuts. This could actually be a pig nut. But I think this is one of our English walnuts that's had a hard time. This one again, I did not transplant when it was dormant. I'm pretty sure this is an English walnut. But it got damaged. And the other thing is, you really want to make sure they're getting watered. And I don't water these trees after I transplant them. And we just had 1.5 inches of rain over the last couple of days here, which has been fantastic. But for several years now, we've had droughts all summer long. And this is the first break we've had, and it's been hot, and it's been very bone dry here. So watering the plants, mycorrhizal fungi, getting as much of the soil as you can. You can damage the taproot, but transplanting them if you can when they're dormant. But I have lots of situations where I sort of break those rules. So we'll take a ride down to Pond 7. And down by Pond 7 is one of the ones that I finished excavating. I think it was I think it was last fall. That's what I think it was. So we're in Suki right now, the new Kubota, and I have had requests to do a really detailed review of this vehicle, and we've only had it for a couple of months, so I don't feel, I mean, we use it every day. Even if it's just on days that we're slacking somewhat and doing other things, doing the book resales business stuff, we go down to the beaver ponds every night, watch the beavers, and watch the deer, the geese, the goslings, and all. And so all of these trees around in here that you see have all been transplanted. It's terrible trying to see. None of these were native in here. Even the big native blueberry bushes, they were all transplanted into this whole area here, these apple trees. And we're almost to pond 7. So last fall, I believe, is when I did the finishing of the excavation of Pond 7 here. And I have videos on that, and we put in a marginal zone, and the water has come up a little bit. But this spring, I went ahead and transplanted some fancy fantail pussy willows there, some of the gooseberries, English oak. This is another one of the fancy fantail, but the deer and the geese eat these things right down, the pussy willows. Another gooseberry, and more gooseberries, more English oak trees over there, more fantails as well, and a couple, where is one? A couple of thornless blackberry plants. And this one I don't think is surviving right here. And there's a little bit of life in this one here. And someday I need to do some updates on some of the tools that I've been using on the property that I really think are really valuable. But I got a battery backup system that I use for coming down here pumping pond water or canal water out to irrigate these guys, but I don't do it as frequently as I should. Really blessed that we had this rain recently over the last couple of days. But I wanted to show you this tree here. So this is an oak that I transplanted this spring after some of the leaves had already leafed out. And you could see it's taken a little bit of a hit. I don't know how well you could see it, but there are some dead spots on this tree. So, and this taproot is not fully intact. And in the area that I got this tree out of, I was moving other trees out, and I'll go down to that area in a moment, but you could see I damaged some of the bark. So that is a big issue as well. So all the way up to here, this was from another log being dragged alongside of it. But hopefully that will heal. And I didn't use the mycorrhizal fungi, and mycorrhizal fungi, and I made videos about this in the past, it creates a symbiotic relationship, a mutually beneficial relationship between the fungal organism and the tree or other plant that it's working with. It helps to function in the capacity to exchange nutrients between that tree or plant that it's attached to. It actually becomes incorporated into the root system, and those other microorganisms and other plants to exchange nutrients. So when this one is producing excess sugars, that comes down through the root systems, goes through the fungi, and that those mycorrhizal fungi then do an exchange with other organisms around in the area, including other plants as well. So it creates a network of support. It's like having the internet for the trees. So that works extremely well. But this tree was in a very tight cluster of trees, and we'll go down to that area in a moment. But this one, I did not incorporate mycorrhizal fungi. I transplanted it after I transplanted it the second time, so this is the second transplant that it had, but I transplanted it after it had already started to leaf out and the buds were already swelling. Not a great time, because that's when the root systems and the circulatory system, the xylem and phloem, the areas underneath the external bark, which the inside of the tree, the woody part's basically dead. But the xylem and phloem are the circulatory system that exchange nutrients and water between the roots and the leaf surface for photosynthesis. Enough of that. So let's go down to the area where I went ahead and dug this up from the second time. So to bring it up here and transplant it at an inappropriate time. So ideally, waiting until the trees have leafed out, waiting until the trees have become dormant and the leaves have fallen, or in oak trees, they've turned brown and they lost their green color, because the oaks will hold those leaves for quite some time. I still haven't picked up the rocks around here after transplanting these plants. All these white birches I transplanted in here, the blueberry bushes along the side here, they were all transplanted over here. Oh, on the way down I'm going to show you something else. Oh, I just scared one of the deer. And I'll do an update on a brush mower that I just recently got from Prime Attachments and all. But I came in here and I did some brush mowing in between these oak and a couple of maple trees here. And so in amongst some of the bushes and some of the noxious invasive plants, there were, here's an example, a nice maple tree right here, and another beautiful oak tree right here. And this area was completely engulfed, and it would have been real easy for me to just mow these ones down, to chop them up. And their root systems are all incorporated. So amongst these trees, even though these trees are completely in the shade, let me stand back here. So you can see this oak tree here and this maple, they're completely shaded here, and they were completely engulfed by plants all around in here, this whole area. And they're actually reaching out now, trying to get out from underneath the canopy. But how did they survive when they were small little seedlings and saplings and growing in amongst all this thick stuff? It's because of the mycorrhizal fungi. The mycorrhizal fungi had an attachment, had actually incorporated into the root system of this tree, and that mycorrhizal fungi reached out and connected to the other trees around here. And so as there was excess nutrients coming from some of the other surrounding trees, that was exchanged through the natural internet of plants, the mycorrhizal fungi, and gave nutrients to these small trees, which are in an understory area. So here's another oak tree right here. And these all grew amongst the canopy of these trees, and they weren't getting sunlight to be able to do photosynthesis. So this oak tree here is completely in the dark, but it can be transplanted out to another area. Now I'll decide this is far enough away that I probably will leave this oak tree right here. It will continue with the benefit of the network, the internet of plants, the mycorrhizal fungi, to exchange nutrients between all of these other trees right in here. So the mycorrhizal fungi functions as an internet. Just like you can go in and Google something or watch a YouTube video on something, you know, what you need, the information you need. You can order something from Amazon and have food delivered or whatever, or Walmart. And it's kind of amazing how it's somewhat comparable, the internet that we take for granted. Sorry, 1 second here. Okay. What we take for granted is actually so beneficial. Gotta find the right roadway to go down here. We're going down by the lower beaver dam is the location we're going to now. And I have had comments on the channel with the persimmons and pawpaws that it's, quote, virtually impossible to propagate persimmons and pawpaws from root cuttings. I'll make a video about that because I guess we're doing the impossible. We're growing them. But it does take an understanding. So we're down by the canal system here. Here's some of one of the swellway systems that the beaver have been working on. Pretty good sized timber they bring in. They are great workers. These are some of the swamp white oaks and some of the gooseberry plants I transplanted down here. Not all of them are making it, but they're doing okay. There's some of the horseradish that I transplanted down here as well. Oh, just scared a couple more deer. So to orient you on the property, this is a canal system that I excavated last year, harvested all the sand. This is the lower beaver dam wall here, lower beaver pond. Upper beaver pond is up over there. This is one of the areas that they've been working on, but as you can see, the water has replenished down in here. Now, as I was coming down and working down in this area and building up this roadway from all the stone walls that I had been excavating on the property, and then taking from the hugelkultur pits, taking some of the sandy gravel and putting on top of this area, and then I dug out the canal systems here. There were clusters of trees like right here. So here we have several maple trees right here, and we have a couple of oak trees. Well, there was one more right here, and that is the oak tree that I just came from. So behind me here is a cluster of trees that are just too close together, and when you're digging them out, one thing I would say here, in this particular location, it's unlike other places on my property. This is sandy right down here. It's really rough, bony gravel just about every place else on the property where we've been for years. The newer area that we're working on over there at base camp, there's more sand incorporated in it, so it's nicer gravel, I'll put it that way. But right in this area here, I'm going to transplant this tree here, this oak, this coming fall, hopefully. But because I was working in here, the trees were getting dragged, the logs are getting dragged along in here as I was trying to clear the area over here. Now this is a new area I put in this spring. So last summer, when the oak trees were still leafed out, and it was around during the drought time as well, is when I first transplanted the oak tree that was right there. So it's similar to this oak tree here, about the same size. I took Elon, the excavator, I took a scoop of it here, I damaged some of the taproot, and I brought it over here. You may be able to see a little bit of a hole here in that spot there. That's where I put it. And I said, well, we're in an area where the beaver have retained the moisture in here, and it's more sandy gravel. So the moisture, even though it was during a drought and all this was as dusty as could be, that went ahead and kept the roots in somewhat decent condition. But as you can see from the depth, oh, one other thing I should say. When I transplanted the tree from there to here, I left this, since I was able to get so much of the soil with the root ball itself, I left it above the level of the ground here. So that's the base of where it was, maybe an inch, maybe it's filled in a little bit since I transplanted it recently. Hope this is making sense. But I deposited the tree, the root ball here, and I pushed the soil from around the sides up to it to maintain it. But the root, the damaged taproot was down at about that level there, which is low enough to get some moisture through the system here, and good drainage because the area drops off right over here. It's a much lower level. So each beaver dam is at different levels here. So the water level in the upper beaver dam is 5 feet above the water level here. The water level here is about 6 feet above the water level down here. You can't even, well, this is one of the beaver crossings right here. If I can get to where you could see. So here's where the beaver make their way through. And this level down here, oh, did I just skip? Oh, just a big snapper. Yeah, right now it's early June, so the turtles are all laying their eggs right now. Lots and lots of egg laying. So I guess the point that I want to make is that I wanted to make sure that I put it in a place where it could get adequate moisture despite the droughts that we have. And I expect the rest of the season will have a drought as well. So I dug it up at an inappropriate time. The tree's big enough, and these guys have deep taproots. I damaged the taproot, but I got a lot of the soil in the bucket, and I put it up and I mounted it up higher. I didn't want to dig it down low where I really was going to destroy a lot of the root mass. And then this spring, after the leaf had already, the tree had already started to leaf out, is when I did the transplanting, and I didn't use mycorrhizal fungi. So let me summarize everything as far as the trees go. Ideally, only transplant your plants when they're dormant. When the leaves have fallen off or they turn brown and they're no longer actively photosynthesizing and they're going dormant for the winter months. Number two, use mycorrhizal fungi to extend the functional surface of the root system so it can get some of the, it can have a symbiotic, mutually beneficial relationship with the plants surrounding the area. Make sure that the plants are really watered. The other thing I would say is sometimes you got to prune these trees back or prune plants back pretty significantly so that their expenditure doesn't exceed their resources or their ability to to transport those nutrients to the bulk of the tree as well. So those were the key things. I'll try to put a link to some of the mycorrhizal fungi that I order off of Amazon down below, and I'll try to put a link to to that first English oak tree. And I've got lots of videos on doing updates on many of the trees around, and I will try to make an update not too soon from now, but on Suki, the Kubota RTV X1100C, and we love it so far. That's the first part of it, but it's too early for me to. We've only had it for a couple of months, and I'll try to do some updates on the ponds and the sealing systems that we've used as well. So that's it for today's video. I'm sorry this is a long one. I didn't anticipate it to be this long, but it ended up being this way. I hope this is thorough enough and it's helpful to actually understand how we've achieved this success that we've had with these type of trees. I'll be making another video about the persimmons and pawpaws and what we've experienced with that, and some of the caveats that you've got to be thinking about when you're taking root cuttings and growing trees from those root cuttings. Thanks so much for watching. Stay safe and take good care of yourselves. Bye-bye now.